Hello there, YouTube. This is Renetto. It is 12:26 a.m. on an early Saturday morning, which just so happens to be day 18 for my 30-day sobriety challenge. I went to bed almost right after I posted my my update video for yesterday, Friday, which was very early in the day for me. Like I said in that video, I definitely, my sleep cycle has been, I've never had a sleep cycle unless I smoked marijuana. I don't know how true this is for anybody else in the world, but there's something about THC that allows me to kind of feel a sense of normalcy and be in some kind of rhythm or routine, which everyone around me seems to be in naturally. I think I do suffer from a manic depressive energy. I don't know if I like using that manic depressive language to characterize my, like some type of mental illness or something, like there's something wrong with it. I think of it more as just like a, you know, the adjectives that are accurate, but I don't like them being connected to, you know, manic depressive as something wrong or disease or mental illness or whatever. I think it just means that when you're up, your body, my brain must produce more kind of dopamines and adrenaline and things like that that kind of geek me out. And when those things go through my body, just like if I, you know, like adrenaline junkies, or if you were doing drugs that are uppers, you must come down. What goes up must come down. And so I don't really think it's that I'm down a lot. I think it's that I'm up a lot. And then my body just has to recover from being up in a, I wouldn't say in an unnatural way, but I would say in an unusual way compared to others. Comparing yourself to others can be a dangerous thing if the comparisons make you feel bad about yourself, or if comparing yourself to others is a way for you to feel better about yourself and to put others down. So if we get out of that thinking and see it more as just like a way to understand the world around you, and the way that I understand the world around me, my ups are higher than most, and my downs are lower than most. My energy, my excitement is very, very genuine. It always has been. And I can recall being in a band in my late teens and early 20s. And, you know, I was in a Christian rock band. And we did like alternative, modern rock alternative type music at the time in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And, you know, it is not uncommon, whether you're a Christian or not, to kind of have the stereotype that if you're in a band, you do drugs, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I was having no sex. I was a virgin until I was 21, and then I was married by 26. So I did have a couple years of going crazy, I guess. Once things went down, you know, that was like a free fall. You know, just like I'm talking about manic depressive. When I was sober, you know, when I decided to drink and smoke, it got out of hand too. And then when I was not having sex, I was reading my Bible and going to marry a virgin. I wanted to be a virgin, and it was all or nothing. And then once that happened, I was like, literally, fuck it, you know, and I fucked everything after that for a few years, and then got married. And anyway, where am I going with all of this? When I was in the band, it is not uncommon for the sex, drugs, and rock and roll stereotype to be thrown around a lot. And people would routinely say, Paul, there's no way. There's no way you're going to convince me that you're not on coke. I think coke was popular at the time. And, you know, now someone would say, dude, he's smoking crack. He's a meth head. Of course, my teeth look too good to be a meth head or a crackhead, but I was never on coke. I never did drugs of any kind at all for many, many, many years, which is probably why I relaxed so much about that in my, I would call mid-40s. I was just like, oh, okay, you know, this isn't that big of a deal. I spent all of these years like ultra sober. What does a guy like me who goes to extremes do? Well, thankfully I didn't go to that, you know, to a down extreme. And fortunately, I have created a crisis in my life before there was one, and it is going very, very well. I did want to touch on a subject in this video, and I'll probably title the video "Worst Case Scenario Thinking." I'm turning the camera on right now because the subject is just fresh in my mind, right out of a conversation, a back and forth I've been having with a friend who is, in my opinion, a worst case scenario thinker. And in all fairness to my friend and to their worst case scenario thinking, most of my healthy friends, and when I call healthy, I mean people that, at least from the outside and from the inside, because I know them very up close and personally, so I guess that's not fair. I guess the people whose lives are the most manageable, I was going to say seem the most manageable, because I can't help but think that everybody's a little tortured about something, and even the people, and sometimes the people that look like they have it all together are the worst, because they do such a good job with their outward presentation that you just assume nothing bad is ever happening inside. But it does seem to be true that the people that I know that really protect themselves, you know, in kind of worst case scenario situations, do seem to have a much more even keel life. They seem to be pretty happy because they choose and need to protect themselves from all worst case scenarios. For example, I do not have health insurance. I don't have a retirement, you know, pension, all that kind of stuff we've talked about. There are people that would lose their minds, literally lose their minds, to live like I do, because they would just be thinking every day, what if, 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 what if. As a matter of fact, I was outside today, and my neighbor's mother, who is about my age, maybe a little bit older, she and I have a friendship. We see each other every few months on the porch next door. And today I stepped outside doing something. Oh, I was getting ready to go on my walk today. And she says, hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while. And I go over there and we start talking. And she's like, I'm so excited. She says, I got health insurance for the first time in 16 years or something. I don't know the exact number, but it was 16, 18 years, something like that. And she is self-unemployed. She has a cleaning business. She cleans homes and power washes and all that kind of stuff. And she's really, really good at her job. And she has some like really wealthy people that she kind of, I mean, she power washes and cleans and goes through the house with like a white glove and dusts everything, and they trust her, they love her, and she has a great working relationship with, you know, many clients. She has all of her own equipment, but she, you know, doesn't have $800 a month for health insurance, which is, she said, you know, the cheapest insurance she has been able to find for years. But somehow, some way, she told me that she's found an insurance policy, some kind of a group policy, and that she's just like, thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God, I just got an insurance policy, and it's a great policy. I've got medical, dental, all this stuff, and it's only a couple, like $250 a month. And I'm like, what? And we were high-fiving each other, and we were laughing and celebrating. And it's just, a lot of people just can't even comprehend that. That she would go 16 or 18 years without insurance. So I just can't comprehend it. But, and she's a hard worker. She works her fingers to the bones. But, you know, having a cleaning business, you have to buy your own insurance. And she just couldn't afford to. She's not good enough at managing her business and having like 25 employees. I mean, she is not just an owner-operator, but she's a solo owner-operator. She's not making money on anybody else working underneath her, because that's a whole nother skill set. It's a whole nother skill set to be able to manage people and grow a business. And, you know, it's one thing to be able to really good at your job and be able to go do that for someone, but it's another thing to, you know, probably most people that have big cleaning companies and make a ton of money are people that are good managers. And they would make good money managing a lawn care business or a cleaning business or a chain of dry cleaners or anything. You know, they could own grocery stores. They could manage people. Then they sit around and manage people and make a little bit of money off each one of those employees and have a great living. But then your job becomes managing people, and a lot of owner-operators aren't good at managing people. They're just good at their job. I know I'm rambling a bit. I don't mind. It's now 2:38 a.m. and it's fine. And I can't let this video go too long because it'll fill up the memory on my phone, and that'll be a problem, and we'll talk about that another time. And I haven't even got around to my worst-case scenario thinkers, which is really why I turned the camera on, but I am just kind of letting it roll a little bit. So the neighbor's mom and myself, we're not worst-case scenario thinkers. I'm a dreamer and a doer. And worst-case scenario is if I invent something or patent something, someone will steal it from me, and I'll never make any money on it. Worst-case scenario thinkers are this idea I have. If I put it out there and I don't have a guarantee, if I'm not assured everybody's going to love it and it's going to make a profit, and the people I hire aren't going to steal anything and aren't going to shit talk me, and we're all going to get along. If I can't, in my mind, kind of figure out how to make sure for a fact all of that good stuff happens, ooh, I can't. I'm just going to go work for someone else who will promise me, who will sign contracts that everything's going to be okay. If I'm the kind of person that if I bought insurance and had tons of insurance and covering everything in my life, and then nothing ever went wrong, I would actually be irritated. I know other people that want the best insurance that they can afford, so they know that nothing will ever disrupt the life that they have imagined. Well, the life I've imagined is one of adventure. I've said this many times that if I had my whole life all written out and scheduled and planned, I would be bored out of my mind if I knew exactly where I was going to be and what I'm going to be doing, for the next 15 years. For some people, that would be the most comfort. They'd go to bed every night just like, oh, I wish I could have planned year number 16 in advance. I only have 15 years planned. They would think, well, in 15 years from now, everything could fall apart, so I better say, there is no way. It's like a mental illness. So I have a friend, and my friend no matter what I tell my friend, no matter how many times we've talked about the same subjects, whether it's politics, Donald Trump is going to get us into World War III. Everybody's going to die from COVID. Florida, hurricanes are going to decimate Florida, and all the property values are going to go down in Florida because Florida, according to Al Gore, maybe 15 years ago, by now Florida should be underwater because the tides are rising because of global climate change. It doesn't mean that there isn't climate change. It doesn't mean that like something bad, like, you know, that something doesn't mean that the polar ice caps are never going to melt. But, you know, I didn't go grab a bunch of data. I'm not here to talk politics. I don't care about politics right now in this video. But Florida's not underwater. Real estate values are higher than they've ever been. I know, you know, I'm just saying that people that lock their doors are afraid of being robbed all the time. I grew up with unlocked doors. And we were robbed. And this is like just hard to believe because people think, oh, Paul, maybe nothing bad ever happened to you. That's why you're so trusting. And that's why you're so open. Well, that's not true. A lot of bad things have happened to me. Speaking of being robbed, I think I may have shared this with you guys before, but I don't remember how old I was. I'm sure it was middle school. The bus would drop us off at the driveway, and my brother was maybe 20 feet behind me, and I walked through the front door of our home, coming home from school. I don't know how old I was. Let's just call it like 7th, 8th grade. I feel like I was younger. Wasn't elementary, but I don't think I was in high school. So yeah, probably about 7th grade. And now if me and Mark were riding the bus together, then he wasn't in elementary. Maybe I was a freshman. Anyway, I'm trying to say I wasn't old enough and big and tough and you know, like tough guy or anything. I was just a regular kid. My little brother behind me. I walk in the front door, and we had like a living room to the right, and if you just kept walking, you'd walk into our kitchen, and then to the right of our kitchen was a big dining area, then a step-down living room, fireplace. And when I stepped into the kitchen, I heard a commotion, and I look over to my right, and a man hunched over, runs through the dining room and out the back door, and then right behind him comes another guy running through the kitchen and out we had these French double doors off to a back wooden deck on maybe a 1/4 acre lot, kind of in the country, if you will. It wasn't in a housing development. There was a rock quarry. Our house wasn't isolated, but it wasn't like just houses everywhere. There were houses like down a road, you know, boom, 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 boom. And then like just acres and acres, you know, 100 acres of rock quarry on one side and a farm on the other and a farm in front of us. But houses down a road and maybe a mile away from the closest housing development. So not isolated, but definitely no one would have heard me scream. That's for sure. The way our houses and stuff were spaced out. Spaced apart from each other. The guy runs through the kitchen, then the other guy runs through the kitchen. And I was like, I wonder who that was. But I wasn't terribly afraid. They didn't yell or say anything to me. And I just immediately turned around and ran back out the front door. And my brother was just stepping into the front. Like, I ran to go get my brother. I was like, Mark, I think someone just, I think we're being robbed. 2 people just ran out of the back of the house. And I was afraid they'd like run around the house and, you know, I didn't know where they were going. Anyway, I go get my brother and he's like, what? And of course, there was nobody home. My mom and dad weren't home. Nobody was home, which was rare because there seemed to be always someone at my house, which is why I thought my house got robbed, but I wasn't even sure because our house was always open and it would not be uncommon for me to walk in the door and an uncle and an aunt be sitting at the dining room table talking to my mom or my dad, or an aunt or an uncle or a cousin or a friend from church sitting in the house going, hey, where's everybody at? I came over and I figured I'd just wait around till someone showed up at home. And then we would, you know, eat dinner or go do something. Like, our house was just a very open house. And eventually, you know, we called the police. My parents came home. We called the police. I had a next door neighbor I was related to, kind of catty-corner from our house. And I went over there to their house and told them what went on. And the police showed up. And I remember getting to do an artist sketch, you know, where I'm talking to the detective and I drew out someone's face. I don't know whatever happened with it, but, you know, I got to sit down and watch him put the eyes and the nose. Is this the nose? Is this the eyes? Are these the lips? Is this the hair? What's the height? And a police did an artist sketch right in front of me that ended up looking a lot like the person that I saw running out of the house. And I thought it was really exciting. We never locked our doors after that either. We all just kind of laughed about it because after we went through the house, we found a pillowcase in the living room. This was after the police left. Like, they're like, well, what was stolen? We go through the house. We open up all the drawers. Or, I'm sorry, they had opened up all the drawers in my parents' room and dumped them out. And my dad's like, yep, we're missing this, we're missing that, we're missing that. And the house was a wreck in some of the bedrooms. And then like 2 or 3 hours later, all the commotion's over. The cops had left. And there was like things missing, like some silver, like coins or whatever my dad had in a particular drawer or something. And anyway, we're all sitting around kind of going, wow, that was crazy, that was crazy. And I don't know if it was me. For some reason, I feel like it was me, but someone sees a pillowcase. I feel like it was me, like over by a couch or something, like behind it. Or anyway, it was just, we just thought it was part of the mess of the house where things had been turned over and ripped apart. Not torn up or busted, just like messed up. And I see this pillowcase and all of a sudden I pick it up and I'm like, hey, everybody, I found everything that they were going to take. They had been putting it all in a pillowcase to take out of the house. And they just dropped the pillowcase and ran out the back door. So they didn't actually break into the house. They were more trespassing, and they didn't steal anything because they left it behind. So who knows what kind of trouble they would have even gotten in. Attempted robbery, I suppose. Anyway, and then just a quick aside from that, we as a family came home from church one time, like at 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night. And I went down the hallway to go get in my bed and go to sleep. And there was a strange man sleeping in my bed. True story. I walk in and there's a guy laying in my bed. And I just walk out of the room and I go get my mom and dad. I'm like, hey, there's a guy sleeping in the bed in there. Does anybody know who he is? I don't recognize him. So I'm asking my mom and dad, and they go in there and they look, and they're like, we're not sure who he is either. Maybe we should wake him up and ask him. So we wake him up, and he's like, hey, what's going on? He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Because the house wasn't locked, like I told you. And there had been a party next door. I mean, not next door like our friends, just the house next door. You know, the family that lived next door, not... we didn't know any of their friends. We didn't socialize with them. They just lived next door and they were good neighbors, but we kind of minded our own business, except for this time. Anyway, they had a party next door and a guy got super drunk and didn't want to drive home and thought he knew the people that lived in our house, or maybe he thought he had gone back into the house he came out of. The point is he wandered in and went to sleep because the door was unlocked and he was sleeping off the drunk. And he apologized. He was so apologetic. And we all laughed about it. I mean, we just got home from church. And, you know, we just thought God was always taking care of us because we were not worst case scenario thinkers. My family was never a worst case. I never heard my dad talk about worst case scenarios ever in my life. My mom never talked about worst case scenarios. We had God, and if God be for you, who can be against you, and all that kind of thinking. And a lot of times, anyway, the guy apologized. Then he told us that he was, when he looks outside, he's like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong house. That's the house. So the next day we talked to our neighbors and like, the neighbor's like, I'm so sorry. Our friend came and he's like that, or whatever they said. And we just kind of laughed it off. And we were like, well, we're glad he slept it off and didn't have to get a DUI. And that is honest. That's just honestly how we lived. That's how I still live to this day. If you're driving through Zephyrhills and you need a place to crash, I might be a little annoyed if you're here, but as long as you don't mess anything up, all can be forgiven. Anyway, I got into a situation with my friend tonight, and I get exhausted trying to comfort my worst case scenario thinkers, but this particular friend is the worst of the worst. And my friend also is kind of accusing me of not, like, well, you think you're not this, and you think you that, and you said this, but I think you're wrong. And, but here's the deal. I also have some issues as a best case scenario thinker. There's a quote that I've heard that says something like, I'd rather be an optimist and be wrong than be a pessimist and be right. I think most of the time, if you don't lock your doors, you're not going to get robbed. I think most of the time when a hurricane comes to Florida, it's probably not going to destroy this house. I think most of the time when a tornado goes flying through Ohio, it's not going to kill you. I think most of the time if there's a wildfire in California, it's probably not going to burn your house down. If you live in a place that's been burnt down 8 times before from a wildfire, if you live on the coast and you're telling everybody how awesome it is that you're 3 feet away from the beach, yeah, the odds of a hurricane destroying your home are a lot better than here in Zephyrhills. There are odds you can play. If you live in a really terrible crime-ridden neighborhood and your neighbors are getting robbed all the time and you leave your doors open, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get robbed. But if you can kind of step back and look at the big picture, when you pull into a Walmart parking lot and you forget to lock your doors, the odds are pretty slim anybody's going to take anything out of your car. And honestly, there's nothing in my car to take. Some change, and somebody needs it, they should open the door and take it. I don't even mind. And I'm glad they don't have to bust the window to get it, because it costs you more to fix the window than to lose the $3.18 in quarters and nickels and dimes and pennies. But it's exhausting to constantly reassure people that, the sky is not going to fall. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, follow me on this thinking. If you're an optimist and you are not a worst case scenario thinking, your worst case scenario thinking friends will eventually convince you that some bad things are going to happen, and you'll probably have just enough of a safety net in your life, because all of the worst case scenario thinkers in your life are driving you crazy, terrified for you, and they'll convince you to do a few things and put a few safeguards. And the odds are occasionally you're going to need those safeguards. But as an optimist and as a best case scenario thinker, you're always going to think you're not going to need them. And then even when things go bad, you're going to say, well, things did go bad that once, but you're going to spin it in a positive way. You're going to say, but all of these years of being carefree, I wouldn't trade any of them for only this one thing bad to ever happen to me. And they're going to say, but I really learned from this. And an optimist and a best case scenario thinker is going to say, And everything just seems to always work out for the good anyway. And the best case scenario thinkers are never going to get the satisfaction ever of you going, thank you for protecting me and making sure I was protected because you were right. Something bad did happen and you told me it probably would. But then again, you've told me that a million times. I mean, think about all the years we drove without seatbelts. If you're 55 or older, you can think of many, 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 many thousands of miles traveled without a seatbelt. And a lot of that thinking will get you killed today. Today we got seatbelts, airbags, and laws. But less accidents are actually happening. So the odds of you dying, you know, I wear my seatbelt every time I go out and everything. I'm just saying, the world is a dangerous place. It gets safer every day. But even when it's most dangerous, well, I'm still here. You're still here. Most of us are going to survive it. But the worst case scenario thinker, it's just the opposite. No matter how good their life is, no matter how, you know, how quickly they get their power back at their house, no matter how they know someone somewhere in the world that's suffering, and you can't get through to them. It is like a mental illness on both extremes. You cannot convince me that all of that worst case scenarios are going to happen to me. And you cannot have enough data about a world of abundance that is happening right now. You can't give people enough data about COVID being manageable and the economy is not going to tank every couple of years. And the gloom and doom of, we could end up in a third world war, but then again, maybe that's okay. Maybe that's just, that'll help us like prevent the fourth world war because we'll pass all new laws. And like what I'm saying is there's no way you're ever going to change my thinking no matter what happens to me. And there's no way I'm going to be able to change your thinking if you're a worst case scenario thinker, no matter what doesn't happen to you. You will find evidence and reasons to substantiate your bias for negativity. And I'm always going to find ways to substantiate I'm going to look for evidence to prove my bias of optimism and positivity. So if you're a worst case scenario thinker, well, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people who are somewhere in the middle, or they're positive thinkers. And I'm saying you really wasting your time and you're going to frustrate yourself trying to help people through that. If you're a middle of the road thinker, and which is a good place to be, here's what I'm really trying to say. I feel bad for worst case scenario thinkers because in a way, all of the protections, everything that they build around them, it's walls that I believe not only protects them from the worst case scenario, but isolates them from happiness and love and optimism. And oh my God, we're 33 minutes in this video. I'm going to wrap it up and say this. I don't quite understand how it works, and I don't know why it works, and I don't know if it's religious or spiritual. I don't know what the origin of this principle is, but I think I see evidence of it, that we do kind of attract energy in our lives. And let's say hypothetically you created a vision board and you're an optimist. Your vision board is going to be all about all the things you can do. If you're a best case scenario thinker, your vision board is going to reflect what you think is possible. And there is a very good possibility you're actually going to attract those things. If you are a worst case scenario thinker, you're going to have a vision board that's either going to be full of ways to keep bad things from happening to you, or it's going to sit on your wall and you're going to stare at it and you're going to go to bed every night thinking, but that's not realistic. But but that never really happens. And you're going to make it to get yourself out of a bad situation, but it's not going to work. Because the bad situation that you're thinking about isn't on your vision board, it's in your head. And I'm afraid that it is going to continue. Your worst fears are, you are going to manifest your worst fears. By simply thinking about them and thinking about how to protect yourself from them all the time. You're going to stare at your vision board as a way to get out of your head, as a way to get out of your... See, I don't need a vision board. I got a vision board in my head. And people that make vision boards are people that are worst case scenario thinkers trying to do anything and everything they can to get out of their heads. People like me don't have a vision board because I can never think of enough good things. And if that's the only good things I want, then I'm missing all the good things that are going to come to me that I don't even know about. Does that make any sense? I'm so optimistic. If that was a vision board back there, I'd look at it and I'd go, but there has to be a place on there for spontaneity. There has to be a thing there for things that are bigger than me that I don't even know I want on my vision board. And my vision board's going to look like it's limiting my possibilities because I couldn't think of everything I really want. But for other people, their vision board is, okay, I put it up there and see, I did what everyone tells me to do, and I've got it all there. So there's a little chance that'll happen, but I probably won't because it's too hard and I don't deserve it and I'm not worthy and all of that stuff. So there isn't a conclusion to this video about so here's what you should do next. I guess it's just possibly the only thing we can do, especially if you're on the extreme opposite of me, like my friend. A worst case scenario thinker meets a best case scenario thinker. Possibly you can meet in the middle and go, I know that I am plagued with optimism, but I think everything's going to be okay, even though I'm plagued with optimism. And you're a worst case scenario thinker, and as hard as you try to let go of all of your fears and doubt and uncertainty, there's probably going to be some things that you overlook, and you're probably going to get smacked in the face, and you're probably going to get, you're probably going to get knocked down, and someone's probably going to go, ha, 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 I got you. You fucking let your guard down, and I got you. And you can see you fucking up and letting your guard down and something bad happened to you. But you might be able to at least you might be able to just maybe wander into a little bit of positivity and release yourself of some of that stress and anxiety and unnecessary. You might stop attracting unnecessary drama. And the truth is a lot of times opposites attract. And you can kind of vicariously live through an opposite. And, and so I don't really know what I'm saying. I guess I'm just trying to talk through my own discomfort and my own frustrations with not being able to help people that I think are suffering from worst case scenario thinking, and my friends probably laying in bed trying to figure out why they couldn't get through to my thick head that everything's not going to be okay. But at the end of the day, I'm happier all the time than they are. And I wish I could give that away. They're safer than I am all the time, and they wish they could give that away. And maybe someone in the comment section can tell, who's a middle-of-the-road thinker, can tell us both how to get along a little better, how to not feel responsible for each other's feelings, how to not let the opposite, the oppositeness of us, or the different, how to not let that get in the way of our friendship when I'm frustrated about their worst case scenario thinking and they're frustrated about my best case scenario thinking. Because as an optimist, I think there is a way for us to all get along. I think there is a way. On Facebook, it says, I believe in people and I'm excited about the future. And most worst case scenario thinkers are afraid of everybody. And they think the future is going to be horrible. And they're sad all the time. So, yeah, maybe what I'm really wanting to do is express how impossible it is for me to see the other side. And maybe I'm saying this to all of you, hoping that my friend will watch this video and hoping that I'll read the comments and they'll read the comments and we'll both at least have some data that gets us through another day and that kind of stuff. I don't know where I'm going with all this. But here's what I do know. It's day 18 of my 30-day sobriety challenge, and I feel optimistic that I'm going to make it. I know that I can and I will focus on my desire to live as a carefree, open-hearted, loving, trusting optimist and believe in people and believe that the future is going to be great. I know I can and I will stay close to this desire by reminding myself of it every day. I know that no one can stop me but me, and that feels good to not be a victim. I know no thing can stop me until tomorrow. And I know I only have to believe. It's possible. Unfortunately, this is the sad part. It's only possible just for today. But, you know me, I can't end on a bad note. It's only possible just for today, but thank God Almighty, tomorrow never comes. 3, 2, 1. Thank